If you don't want a divorce, get out of this house right now. All right. These words came suddenly from my husband. Obviously, I was taken aback. He must have been quite confident that I wouldn't file for divorce to go to such lengths to intimidate me. When I couldn't take it anymore, I decided to seek advice from someone else. My name is Anna. I'm a 30-year-old office worker. My husband, James, and I are about to celebrate our 5th wedding anniversary. We're still waiting for the blessing of a child. This has led to a constant barrage of questions from my mother-in-law about when she can expect grandchildren. My father-in-law passed away years ago. My mother-in-law lives on the inheritance he left behind. Honestly, I feel on the verge of a nervous breakdown with her constant prodding about grandchildren. Actually, I might already be there. Despite seeing me like this, my husband James doesn't lift a finger to help. In fact, he recently started siding with his mother, blaming me for our troubles. I used to adore him for his kindness when we were dating, but after we got married, his attitude completely changed. Without any consultation, he decided we would live near his childhood home. On my days off from work, I am summoned to his parents' house and made to do housework all day long. Of course, there are no breaks. While I'm busy with chores at his parents' house, the two of them either go out together or stay in watching TV and laughing. I was even yelled at once for making too much noise with the vacuum cleaner. After that, I was forbidden to use it and was told to clean with a broom and a rag instead. Then my sister-in-law moved back home. She was originally living in a neighboring town, but due to some personality conflict, she had recently moved back. Her return has only added to my burden. She has a 4-year-old daughter and expects me to make her kindergartner's lunch every day. When I tell her that it's impossible because of my job, I get yelled at by my mother-in-law saying, "Your sister-in-law is dealing with the aftermath of a divorce." My husband says, "Don't you want to be useful to the family?" And my sister-in-law herself, she says, "It'll be good practice for when you have a child of your own, so you should be thankful." So I end up waking up at 4 a.m. every morning. I make my niece's lunchbox and breakfast for my in-laws, then head back to my place, finish my own housework, and go to work. That's the brutal routine I've been forced into. My husband, of course, doesn't lift a finger to help with any household chores. The only time I get to rest is during my break time at work. One day, after living this exhausting routine for a while, my husband dropped a bombshell on me. "Oh, by the way, Anna, you should quit your job." "What?" "I've talked it over with my mom and sister. You know, she's going through a rough time, you understand?" "No, I don't get what you're saying." "Listen, I mean quit your job and take care of the house." He snapped at me before storming off to take a bath. I couldn't see the connection between my sister-in-law's divorce and me quitting my job. My husband is stuck in a dead-end job. And there are months when I earn more than him. Does he really think we can live off his salary alone? Neither my mother-in-law nor my sister-in-law work. I can't understand why they can't handle the housework. Feeling like I couldn't handle any more of this, I grabbed my car keys and drove off to one place that came to mind. That place was my childhood home, a bit far from the apartment we live in now. My parents had moved overseas and no one currently lived there. Because my parents are the worrying type, I couldn't bring myself to talk to them about the matter. Whenever something unpleasant happened, I'd come here. This is my home, filled with precious memories. As I was lost in these thoughts, my phone rang. It was my husband.
"Hey, I just got to the bath and you're gone. Are you back at your parents' place again?"
"Yes, so what?"
"Could you stop running back home every time something goes wrong? We're not kids."
My husband loves my parents' house, but his words simply didn't resonate. "I'll be working from here for a while, and no, I won't go to your parents' house either."
"Stop messing around. Come back home now."
Defeated by his forcefulness, I returned to our house. Afterwards, I quit my beloved job in the fashion industry. My clueless coworkers speculated I might be pregnant. I was given no free time, made to manage the household all day. Even when I caught a cold and ran a high fever, no one seemed to care. I had become a servant in this house, a slave, to put it bluntly. However, one day, amidst this lifestyle, something happened. Guess what? My sister-in-law was getting remarried. Moreover, her fiancé was an executive at a major corporation earning a substantial income. It was quite a shock. My sister-in-law isn't exactly a beauty, and her personality leaves a lot to be desired. I understood everyone has different tastes, and there are all sorts of people out there. The entire in-law family was celebrating, shouting about how she was marrying into money. My sister-in-law, full of pride, showed me a photo of the man. Huh? This man. I thought, looking at the photo when my husband said something unbelievable. Because of this, Anna, your parents' house will become my sister's family place. Wait a minute, that house is what my parents left for me. It's not for you to decide. The whole family has decided. You who lives off my money don't have a say in this. Was the person standing in front of me a devil in human skin? That house was left for me by my father, a place for me to live if I ever had children. James should know this. Why can he act so selfishly? My heart was at its limit. As if to add insult to injury, my mother-in-law said, "You can't even give us a grandchild. Can't you be useful around the house for once?" There was no one on my side in this house. I returned home, hastily packed a few belongings, and headed to my parents' house. I made a firm decision in my heart. I would never go back. A few days later, having received no calls from my husband, I thought he might have reconsidered. Then suddenly the doorbell rang. Standing there were my husband and sister-in-law. "What are you doing here?" "We thought we should take a look around soon," my sister-in-law said, barging in. Despite my pleas for them to stop, they ignored me, snooping around the house. They treated me as if I was invisible. "This house is pretty nice. Too good for you, Anna." "And when do you plan to move out of this house, Anna? My sister's wedding is coming up soon. Get it together," my husband said, unchanged. As I stayed silent, my husband added, "If you don't want to get divorced, leave now." My husband, confident that I wouldn't divorce him, was grinning with my sister-in-law. Looking my way. Got it. Once I confirmed, my husband seemed pleased, saying it's all he wanted to hear. Apparently, under the guise of celebrating my sister-in-law's wedding, they are planning a long, family-only trip, starting tomorrow. Naturally, I'm not included in this little escapade. My husband told me to pack up and leave by the time they get back. Then he and my sister-in-law left with an excited air about them. Watching their backs, I allowed myself a small, mirthless smile. 2 weeks later, the day for my in-laws to return from their trip arrived. My phone has been ringing nonstop since morning. The caller, my husband. Also mixed in were calls from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Finally, unable to ignore the noise, I answered the call.
"Hey, Anna, where the hell are you?"
"I'm at home?" I replied.
"Liar, you're not at the apartment or at your parents' place, and what's the meaning of this?"
"What are you talking about?"
"Your family house. There's a for sale sign."
"Yeah, I put it up for sale."
What? What are you talking about?"
"Well, after you all left, I gave it some thought. The house you're in now just seems so dirty. I do like things to be clean after all."
"I'm divorcing you. Don't mess with me," my husband yelled.
That was going to be my line. Let's talk through our lawyers from now on. With that, I hung up on him while he was still shouting. On the day my husband and sister-in-law returned, I had already been in touch with a certain person. He was a friend of my father's, who runs a real estate company. I didn't know anything about selling houses, but he kindly advised me and we managed to make a pretty good deal. As a side note, the apartment we had been living in was in my name since my husband couldn't pass the screening process. Of course, since I had no intention of living there anymore, I canceled the lease while they were away and sent all of my husband's belongings to his parents' house, cash on delivery. Even afterwards, I kept getting calls from my in-laws, which I ignored completely. I recorded all the unbearable messages they left on my voicemail. According to my lawyer, my husband was hesitating even though he had said he wanted a divorce. It seems he didn't want to lose his maid. I thought it would be a long battle, but then my husband suddenly agreed to divorce. From what my lawyer told me, my husband, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law abruptly showed up at his office saying they would divorce me and to process it quickly. My husband had been reluctant about the divorce, but my mother-in-law told him that since my sister-in-law's new husband was rich, they could hire a new housekeeper with money and get rid of the barren wife and get a younger, newer wife. With that, my husband agreed to the divorce. Moreover, they offered to pay a small settlement on the condition that I would not get involved with them any longer. I thought that was supposed to be my line, but I decided to accept what was offered. Not long after, my sister-in-law got remarried. For a while after that, life was quiet. Taking care of myself was so much easier than I thought. I deeply regretted not divorcing sooner. Well, I'm finally free. Time to enjoy my new life. Just as I was beginning to embrace this thought, an incident happened. Out of nowhere, my in-laws showed up at my new home. The moment I opened the door, they barged in, and my ex-husband demanded, "We need to talk, sit down." Despite wondering who they thought they were, I took a seat, then he said, "Come back home, we forgive you." Unable to close my gaping mouth, I answered, "Excuse me?" I wanted them to leave immediately, so I teased, "Oh, are you talking about your sister's husband? Has he disappeared?" The three of them widened their eyes as if to say, "Why do you know about that?" and stared at me. "What, do you know something? After we registered our marriage, he suddenly disappeared. We can't contact him." The mother-in-law added with a hint of excitement, "On top of that, he ran off with our family's fortune. Was this your doing? You've brought us such terrible fortune, daughter-in-law." She looked as if she would attack me at any moment. Tired of their baseless accusations, I decided to reveal a truth to them. "Wow, I didn't know your sister liked hamburgers so much." What are you talking about hamburgers all of a sudden?" "Don't you know? Your sister's husband isn't some executive at a major company. He's just a part-timer at a hamburger shop." Hearing this, the sister-in-law froze at a loss for words. I continued my story. "In my single days, my friend and I loved to visit different hamburger shops. There was one favorite shop where a certain employee always made mistakes and got yelled at by the manager. The man happened to be the sister-in-law's husband. Since I started dating my husband, he told me, 'No more hamburgers,' so I had given up my hobby. I had recognized the man from a photo the sister-in-law had proudly shown me, but I decided it wasn't my place to interfere and stayed silent. When I showed her the shop's homepage for evidence, she stared intently at her husband's picture in the background. By the way, I visited the shop recently with a friend, but her husband was no longer there. He probably left town." That's marriage fraud." "It seems that's what they call it. I'm sorry for your loss." The mother-in-law, who had been silent, said, "You knew and you didn't tell us. We took care of you, who can't even have children, for years. You owe us." At her nonsensical rant, I decided to reveal another truth I had been keeping. "First of all, I'm not the reason we couldn't have kids. Maybe my ex-husband can let you in on that." The mother-in-law looked at her son in shock, and he guiltily looked down. When we couldn't conceive after our marriage, we decided to get tested at the insistence of the mother-in-law. There was nothing wrong with me, but my husband had a very low sperm count. The doctor told us that he was the reason we couldn't have kids. When the mother-in-law asked about the test results, my husband instantly lied that I was the problem. I was angry, but they just said nonsensical things like, "You have to support your husband." Refusing to face the truth, my ex-husband joined forces with my mother-in-law, pinning all the blame on me in the end. "Look, I admit I was wrong," my ex-husband said. "Once the house sells, we'll get a good chunk of money, right? Let's all live happily as a family again." "Well, we've been through a lot, but let's get along from now on," my mother-in-law chimed in. At the end of the day, I realized they probably came here today with the intention of getting their hands on my money. What a disgusting lot. No chance I'm getting back together with you, and I don't consider any of you family. Upon hearing this, my ex-husband retorted, "Getting a little big for your boots now, aren't you? I know, even if you sold the house, you hardly have any savings. How do you plan to survive?" It seems he had sneaked a peek at my bank account during my single days, and now he had this smug look on his face, as if to say, "Now that you know, do as you're told." To poke fun at my situation, the three of them were smirking at me, so I decided to enlighten them with a little truth. "Sure, my savings aren't that much. See, I told you so." But instead, I've invested in stocks, enough to live without working for the next few years at least. Their faces looked like they wanted to say, "No way," as they stared at me. Actually, since I was a child, my father was interested in stocks and investments. He had a knack for foreseeing things, and I inherited those skills and built up a decent amount of wealth. The money that supported my parents' move abroad was all from those successful investments. Of course, I had kept this a secret from my money-grubbing ex-family. Seeing the disappointed trio, I asked, "You can leave now." "Oh, what was it again?" "It's in our divorce conditions. If we approach each other without reason in the future, either party will have to pay a penalty. Are you going to pay, or should I call the police for trespassing?" The word police scared them off, and they left in a hurry. I immediately consulted my lawyer about the day's events and was told to contact him if the ex-family tried to get close again. As expected, once they knew I had assets, my ex-husband sent me a ton of messages begging to reconcile. Nostalgic photos of places we've been on, dates, creepy messages like, "I'm here right now, thinking about those days," arrived almost daily. I thought about blocking him, but kept everything as evidence just in case. And yes, I wondered how he managed to text me all day while supposedly working, but I didn't really care. But when he started trying to contact my friends, I decided enough was enough and sent him a message. "I'll go to the police if this continues." I sent him a photo of our divorce agreement and the nearest police station along with the message. After that, the messages stopped, and I never heard from my ex-husband again. I thanked my lawyer, and he dropped a bombshell. Apparently, my ex-husband planned to live off his sister's new husband and had quit his job when she remarried. He was a fool for leaving a decent job at a decent company. "Document you asked for should be arriving soon," I told my lawyer. I had placed another request with the lawyer separately from this matter, Soon after we were married, I felt something was off. My precious personal belongings were slowly disappearing. First, it was a necklace that I bought myself when I was single. Then a fountain pen my parents had given me as a job starting present. Bags, rings, and above all, the fountain pen was something I cherished greatly. When I talked to my husband about it, he yelled, "Don't worry about losing things." Suspicious, I installed a surveillance camera without telling my husband. What it captured was my husband and mother-in-law rummaging through my closet, grinning. Once my sister-in-law moved back in, the footage showed 3 people instead of 2. Taking advantage of my silence, their actions escalated. They were selling my personal belongings, their greed for money fueling their actions. They probably saw the balance in my bank book at that time. It continued until the divorce, so I collected plenty of physical evidence. Just as they thought I wouldn't claim anything, I filed for damages and compensation for emotional distress due to their actions. They must be panicking right now, but it's their own doing. As for what happened to the 3 of them, my sister-in-law's ex-husband found out about this incident, and it seems he took custody of their daughter. Seeing how my sister-in-law didn't seem to care for her daughter, I felt relieved. Just a while ago, I saw the daughter-in-law and what seemed to be the ex-husband happily holding hands and shopping. She had a happy smile on her face, something I never saw when she was at my in-laws. The 3 of them who wanted to live comfortably apparently applied for welfare, but they, being healthy and nothing else, were naturally refused. As for my husband, his pride kept him from finding another job. Eventually, he went to his old workplace and begged on his knees, but they had been hoping for him to quit and ended up calling the police, which he hated. He has to work, but it seems he can only find day labor jobs. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law had to pay me compensation, so they both started part-time jobs at a nearby supermarket. But the 2 of them, who have hardly worked before, are struggling with the unfamiliar work. Maybe it's coincidence, but since they started, the supermarket sales have dropped significantly. They got quite a strong nickname, the plague-bringing mother and daughter. By the way, the marriage scammer is still at large. I thought they owned the house they were living in, but it was actually a rental. Unable to pay the rent, the 3 of them moved to a rundown apartment that was infamous in the neighborhood. Their living is hand to mouth, and it seems they're always fighting. The other day, the police were called because their fighting was too loud. As for me, thanks to their help, I sold the house and used the money as capital to start a new apparel company with a colleague from my old job. Recently, we've been getting more customers and even featured in magazines and TV. Being able to return to the job I love is the happiest thing for me. Oh, and there's one more thing. I've met a man through work and we're getting married. His parents and siblings are very kind and they've been treating me very well. What's more, we're expecting a baby, and I'll be the mother I've always dreamed of being next year. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life right now.
Hey, where are you right now? I've been sleeping at home. Sleeping at home? There's no sign of my husband at our home, where I am now. He's lying to me. The story goes back to when I was pregnant with our first child. My name is Ashley. I was finally expecting our first child in our 2nd year of marriage. Just 1 month to go until my due date. I'm 9 months pregnant. While I'm excited about the birth, I can easily imagine the confusion of going through childbirth and child rearing for the first time. So I had planned to go back to my parents' house this weekend to have them help me out for a while. I mentioned the idea of going back home to my husband during the stable period of my pregnancy, but I thought he had probably forgotten, so I brought it up again today. Then, while lazily watching TV, my husband said, "Going back to your parents? Oh, I think you mentioned something about that. If you're going, why not just go? I'm not going to have any trouble without you here." What the? I was taken aback by my husband's dismissive words, but I didn't want to start an argument, so I decided not to push back. Well, I'm going back this weekend. I'll be giving birth next month, and I'm planning on staying for a month or 2 afterwards, so I guess I'll be back in about 3 months? Please make sure the room is clean and ready for the baby. Alright. I would have done it anyway. Oh, and I can't see you off this weekend because I have to work. Oh, alright. I had hoped at least he would accompany me to the station, but that hope was quickly crushed. I knew he was a workaholic. He often goes to work even on weekends, always seeming busy. But I wish he could spare a thought for how difficult it's going to be for me, heavily pregnant and carrying a lot of luggage, to navigate the trains. And while I understand that he's busy, I do get lonely sometimes. I don't want our baby, who will be born soon, to feel lonely. Moreover, I have been feeling anxious about whether we will be able to raise our child together at this rate. It's not just my child. When did he become so cold? With these complex feelings, I started packing. Since there was still time before I went back to my parents' house, I decided to send my luggage other than valuables by home delivery service. I, who had been hoping to welcome the baby to a clean house, had cleaned from corner to corner when I started maternity leave a little early. They say that women develop a nesting instinct when they become pregnant. I had prepared a baby bed and secured a space for the baby, and I was excited about starting a new life as a family of 3 when I came back in 2.5 months. But my sloppy husband kept dirtying the places I had cleaned. Maybe I was the one to blame for cleaning too early, but regardless, he seemed to have not lost his sense of living alone at all. He would leave half-drunk bottles of drinks scattered around and left cardboard boxes used for packaging the stuff he bought online, opened and left unattended. Come to think of it, I realized that I had never seen my husband cooking or cleaning since we got married. Despite the fact that I kept tidying up, things were only getting more disordered, and I started worrying about whether the house would be okay while I was away. But then again, the time of childbirth was imminent. The weekend arrived in a flash, and I headed to my parents' home. On the other hand, my husband really went to work without seeing me off. While relaxing at my parents' home, I was keeping in touch with my husband fairly well. We had email exchanges every day, and I would call him about once every 3 days. But gradually, my husband started not answering my calls more frequently. When I asked him, "You haven't been picking up the phone lately, are you busy?" During the rare times I got through, he started giving vague responses, like, "Well, yeah," or "Not really." "You're not cheating on me, are you? I heard that many men cheat when their wives are pregnant." "Nah, why would I do that? It's annoying to be doubted." On the phone, my irritated husband made me feel cautious, and I quickly apologized, saying, "So, sorry." It's not good for mental health to have such unnecessary worries while nurturing a precious child in my belly. I must trust my husband. I decided so. Then, a few weeks later, my labor pains started. While I was preparing for admission to the hospital, I called my husband. I felt embarrassed to show my pained expression as I endured labor, but I wanted him to be there at the moment of birth, at least. Surely, my husband would also be moved by the birth of our child. "The labor has started. It usually takes about half a day for the first child to be born, so you should be able to make it if you start now. I want you to be there at the moment of birth. See, you can even cut the umbilical cord." When I said so, my husband let out a sigh of annoyance. What? You want me to come by train right now?" "Sorry, I'm tired too, so I can't. I have work tomorrow too." "What? You're still talking about work, even at this time? Our child is being born, you know. Is work still your priority?" "Shut up. There's no replacement for my job. This is the moment our child is born. It's not going to happen again. Like I said, there's no replacement for me. If I don't do it, the work won't go around. Can't you understand that? I'm cutting the call because I'm busy." I tried to persuade him somehow, but my words did not resonate with my husband. As I was cut off on the phone, I shed tears while enduring labor pains. Why is my husband so indifferent to our child's birth? From the moment a mother finds out she's pregnant, she puts her child first. But is a father so indifferent? And so, I faced my first childbirth alone, in solitude. The labor pains lasted for a full day, and a cute little boy was born the next day. Such a tiny, cute, and beloved existence. After getting discharged, my parents showered the child with love while teaching me various things about childcare. By the time a month flew by, I had become adept at bathing the baby. My parents expressed their concern, saying, "Are you okay with such a husband? We can't help worrying about you after we go back." But not wanting to worry them, I tried to reassure them, saying, "Well, I think I can manage somehow. My health is recovering faster than I expected, so maybe I'll go back next week." "Really? Don't push yourself. Let us know immediately if anything happens." "Yes, Thank you. They often say that a postpartum body is like that of someone who has been in a car accident. But thanks to hormones, my spirits were high and my body was recovering steadily. I was also getting used to taking care of the baby, so I decided to go back home a little earlier than planned. While I was being cared for at my parents' house, there was hardly any contact from my husband, and even when I sent photos and videos of our son, he didn't show much reaction. I guess a parental heart probably sprouts as one actually raises the baby, and perhaps a sense of being a father wouldn't come up until he interacts with the baby. That's how I thought. I was trying to keep myself going with that thought. I decided to have my parents drop me off at home. I didn't tell my husband that I was coming home, but he should be at home since it's his day off today. I wondered what his reaction would be when he saw our child for the first time. Would my child like our home? After a few hours' drive, we arrived home. I carried my son while my parents lugged our luggage, and I unlocked the door. But what welcomed us was a dark and silent room. We're home! A bit early, but we're back. Hey, no one's here? Ugh, what is this smell? Entering the living room, a foul odor hit our nostrils. Turning on the light revealed a sight I hadn't imagined. The room was in a state of disarray, reminiscent of a garbage dump. Dirty dishes and half-eaten pizza were stuffed in the sink. Clothes and food and drink trash scattered about. Half-drunk juice had mold floating in it, emitting a strong odor. The table was covered in stains and dirt. The shower room and sink were filled with black mold. The toilet was dirty and stunk. And in the crib we had prepared for our son, there were piled up unused cardboard boxes and garbage bags. I had told them to keep it clean for welcoming our son, but the reality was far from clean, and I was shocked. There's no way we can live in such a dirty house, and above all, I was most upset about the crib being soiled. Hey, isn't this too much? What's going on? There's no way we can raise a baby in a place like this. My parents were furious and searched for my husband, opening each room. But my husband was nowhere to be found. Where could he be on his day off? Another weekend shift, perhaps? But we don't even know if his previous shifts were true. He's not on a commission basis, so working on the weekend doesn't increase his salary, and his company is supposed to follow the calendar. I had honestly been doubting him always disappearing on the weekends. Let's try calling him. There was no way we could stand in such a cluttered room anymore, so I evacuated my bewildered parents outside for a moment and called my husband, but he didn't answer. Finally, my husband answered the phone when I called for the third time. Hey, where are you now? I was sleeping at home. Why? At home? We had searched the whole house, but neither my parents nor I had seen my husband. Could he possibly be buried in a mountain of trash? But we couldn't feel any human presence, and his tone didn't sound like he had just woken up. Then I heard a woman's voice over the phone. I couldn't make out what she was saying, but it was definitely a woman's voice. At that moment, I realized everything. This man, he's cheating on me. I can't believe he would cheat on me while neglecting our child. The house was a mess while we were gone. He was cheating on me, and I was furious. A father like this is unnecessary for our son. I'm fed up with a husband like this. If he likes the other woman so much, then I'll let him have her. How can you live in such a messy and rotting smelling house? Oh, I get it. Maybe a burglar came in? I need to report this to the police. Huh? You're at your parents' house, right? What are you talking about all of a sudden? My anger escalated at my confrontational husband, and I raised my voice. You're the one lying about sleeping at home, aren't you? Stop playing dumb. It's absolutely unacceptable to turn the crib into a garbage dump. I'm not coming back to this house. We're getting a divorce. I said this rapidly and hung up the phone. After that, I actually reported to the police that we were victims of burglary to punish my husband. I told my parents and son to go back to my parents' house first, and I waited for my husband in front of the house. Then the police arrived before my husband did. I invited them into the house as if I were welcoming guests. And soon after, I saw my husband coming this way. Unbelievably, there was a woman walking alongside my husband. My husband approached me with a face that seemed to say, "This is bad." "Hey, you! You weren't supposed to be back until next month." But who is she? The woman standing next to him was glaring at me, arms crossed. And who are you, for that matter? What? In spite of running into his mistress, I felt strangely calm. I decided to ask the woman some questions. As it turned out, my husband had been meeting her while concealing the fact that he was married. I was so disgusted with my husband that I didn't know how to react anymore. Hey, at least hear me out. My husband tried to grab my shoulder in a fluster, but I slapped his hand away, not wanting him to touch me. Don't touch me. It's repulsive. The police are checking the room right now. I hope you feel embarrassed having them scrutinize the mess you've made. I'm leaving now. You can explain to the police. Goodbye. Leaving them with a parting shot, I headed back to my parents' house, leaving my husband and the woman in a daze. There were numerous calls from him, but of course I did not answer. I finally decided to respond that night. Apparently, he had explained the situation to the police, and he returned home with a troubled look. The police, pinching their noses against the foul smell and struggling to move around the room, must have been quite embarrassing for him, but he brought it upon himself. After being dumped by the woman he had been lying to, all that was left for my husband was his shame and a house in shambles. Come on, I'm sorry. Come back. I've been looking forward to seeing our son. If he truly felt sorry, he should have at least come to my parents' house. Thinking that he can apologize over the phone and everything would be fine shows what a terrible person he is. I can't imagine spending the future with him. Even though you never showed any interest before, you suddenly care? You weren't even there when I gave birth, despite me asking you to come several times. Well, I thought you knew that I would. I'll clean up the room. I can't do household chores without you. I need you. I can imagine my husband getting more desperate and breathless on the other end of the line as I continue to reject him. No matter how much you beg, it's not happening. You should have kept that woman. If you can't handle housework, have her do it for you. But that was just a fling. It was a momentary lapse. You're the only one for me, Ashley. A fling? Weren't you seeing her every time you said you had to work overtime? Well, that's, different. I pressed my husband, who was mumbling incoherently, and he confessed that he had been cheating on me with multiple women from his high school that he had reconnected with at a friend's wedding party. He's a scumbag either way. There's no point in talking. I started to feel chills listening to my husband desperately apologizing in a voice close to tears. I can't believe it. You disgust me. Were you planning to touch our son with those hands? Unthinkable. I won't do it again. I'll come to pick you up right now. I want to see you and our son. I'll prove my sincerity. Let's go home together. I couldn't believe what I was hearing from my husband's defiant voice. What is he thinking at this point? I can't trust you. There's nothing more to talk about. I'll raise our son on my own. Ashley, please, forgive. I hung up without hearing the rest of his words. The sound of the call ending echoed emptily in my ear. And so, our short marital life came to an end. Half a year has passed since then, and I decided to start working, relying on my parents. Once I've saved up enough money, I intend to leave my parents' house and start living on my own with my son. I am in the midst of divorce negotiations with my husband, mainly for the sake of alimony. Having limited experience living alone, my husband is apparently unable to manage household chores, and most of his meals are from dining out, leaving the house in disarray. However, that's no longer my concern. I will do my best, expressing my abundant love for my son. So, you're really coming to our wedding, huh? I'll be embarrassed to introduce you as my sister-in-law to our relatives, my brother's fiancée, Lily, remarked. I'm Katie, a 37-year-old single woman who dropped out of school. I'm not ashamed of my dropout status or my singleton life at this age. In fact, I'm proud to say it's all for living happily with my precious family. My family has always been poor and fatherless since I was born. For reasons unknown, my mother bore me and my younger brother Georgie 2 years my junior while still unmarried. She worked relentlessly, but with 2 children to feed, we were always barely making ends meet. Sometimes a relative would come over to our home and try to give money to my mother, but she would always decline, saying, "Please, let us rely on you only when we're truly desperate. We're okay for now." When I asked my mother why she refused to accept the money, she explained, "If I just take his money, his wife might feel upset." But honestly, I wished she had taken the money. Georgie was a brilliant kid. He even topped his grade in elementary school. As an overly proud older sister, I was excited for him, thinking he was destined to become a successful person in the future. In fact, his school teacher recommended him for admission to a prestigious school, but we didn't have the money for that. He ended up going to a not-so-great school, and I felt terrible for him. So I chose to drop out of school and started working without hesitation. Well, the truth is, I hated studying, so I seized the opportunity to start working. Of course, most of the jobs available for a dropout didn't pay well, and I ended up working in a small office. But when the owner of the office decided to retire and close the business, he recommended me to a reputable company he had dealings with, and I was able to get a decent paying job there. I worked hard and even received a manager title at the age of 35, earning a salary comparable to a college graduate of the same age. However, my brother's fiancée, Lily, doesn't seem to approve of me being a dropout, especially because my brother Georgie, now a graduate of a prestigious university, is thriving as a salesman at a top-tier company called ABC Trading. Perhaps it's my single eyelid, or my not-so-friendly eyes. But from the first time she met me, Lily seemed to think of me as some kind of failed dropout who couldn't make it to college. I was shocked when Georgie told me that Lily had asked him, "Hey, is your sister, kind of a problem person?" Lily, the daughter of a director at the ABC Trading, where Georgie works, is quite a beauty, but it's hard to say she's a good person. She came to our house once and was so taken aback by our rundown apartment that she refused to come in. She complained, "Even though I dressed up so nicely, I'm getting dirty." She also felt embarrassed that her boyfriend, with whom she was in a relationship, was commuting from such a place. Borrowing the power of her father, who was the head of the department, she forcefully moved Georgie into a family housing, where he should not have been able to move in. She seemed to have insisted on a ridiculous excuse that we're going to live there once we're married. There was a catch to this. Outsiders were prohibited from entering the company housing, and even close relatives had to apply each time they visited. "Oh, I guess I can't visit often. I wanted to peek at your happy newly-wed wife," I joked, to which Lily's mother coldly replied, "That's precisely why we decided to have them live in a family house." Moreover, she was rude to Mother. On the day she came to our house, Lily whispered in a voice that Georgie couldn't hear, "Because your mother-in-law was poor, Georgie will have to keep paying back his student loans, even after marriage. It's natural for parents to pay for tuition, right?" And glared at Mother. The truth was that Mother and I had been saving for Georgie's college fund, but he insisted on paying it himself. In this way, Lily and Lily's mother have quite difficult personalities, but Georgie is completely aware of this, due to their feline pretensions, which are typical of celebrities. "Actually, I want my mom to move into the company house too, but Lily says the husband's siblings are not eligible to move in, so my sister-in-law will be alone." That's pitiful. When I told her that I graduated from college with a scholarship, Lily's mom said, "You want to relieve your mom as soon as possible, right? You're such a thoughtful and wonderful person." He happily talked about how kind Lily and her family were. Well, if the couple gets along well, there's no need for us to badmouth them. so we remained silent. But that was a mistake. Lily and her family started to exclude me and Mother, especially me. Sister-in-law, do you plan to attend our wedding? With the wedding with Georgie just half a month away, Lily suddenly contacted me. Of course, he's my only brother. But the venue is quite luxurious, and we're expecting about 150 guests. It seems that they invited even the president and the managing director of ABC Corporation, and the higher-ups of their clients, given the marriage between the daughter of the head of the department and the promising Georgie. When I thought they might not have enough seats, she said, "I think all the guests will feel uncomfortable if there's one poor-looking sister-in-law." What? Poor looking? I plan to wear a proper formal outfit for the wedding. Your proper is probably a suit from a catalog that costs about 10,000 yen, right? It's embarrassing to be surrounded by people wearing high-end brand clothes. Lily had judged me to be a bottom-tier person. To be frank, I don't want you to come to our wedding. Fed up with her implication that poor people should not come, I asked Lily a question. What about my mother, then? Mother doesn't have any high-brand clothes either. I know that, but I can't not invite Georgie, who is a promising member of the company, and I don't want to be embarrassed by the shabby appearance of me or my relatives, so we'll prepare Mother's clothes. I was incredibly upset by the way Lily spoke, but it's obviously better to dress appropriately if people from top-notch companies are attending. I desperately tried to interpret it as her being considerate, so that Mother wouldn't be embarrassed at Georgie's big event, but I was taken aback by her next words. Of course, you will have to buy that dress. It's an Oscar de la Renta evening dress, so please prepare about $10,000 in total. Wait, I can't afford such an amount. If you can't pay, you will have to. Or do you plan to stand next to my parents in a cheap dress? I was flabbergasted and asked what Georgie thought. I haven't told Georgie yet. Of course, he thinks you and Mother will attend, but it will tarnish his future if his mother is unmarried and his sister is a dropout. No, I think nowadays, having a family of single mothers or dropouts doesn't affect a person's career. I didn't want to lose to Lily's prejudice, so I yelled, "Anyway, it's my only brother's wedding, so both Mother and I will attend the wedding. We'll prepare the clothes, so we won't pay for it. If you really can't stand it, just don't invite us." Then I told Mother everything and asked for her advice. Mother looked downcast for a while, but eventually looked up and said cheerfully, "Don't worry, Katie. I promise you I will make Georgie happy. Just leave it to me." She then started to make a phone call and eventually revealed something astounding. On the wedding day, a solemn ceremony was held in the chapel first. I had been worried about whether or not I should tell Georgie about what Lily had said, but since I had left everything to Mother, I decided to remain silent. However, Georgie's expression seemed stiff. Was it just nerves, or had Mother told him something? After the ceremony, I was taken aback when I looked at the seating chart at the reception venue. Mother's name was the only one written in the family section, and I couldn't find my seat anywhere. Wait, there's no seat for me. Even though I said I would be attending, they were really trying to exclude me from the reception. Just then, Lily's parents showed up, giving me a disdainful look. I can't believe you didn't understand when Lily told you not to come to the reception. We let you attend the wedding ceremony because we had no choice, but we can't stand having you spread your poverty around the reception. Go home, dropout sister. Ah, like mother, like daughter. Fine, I'll go home then. As I turned my back on Lily's parents, who were smirking, there was the CEO of Nikamimi Corporation, a listed company and business partner of Lily's father, standing with Georgie. "Mr. Ashcroft, thank you so much for coming!" "Katie, you're in the way!" "Sorry about that, Mr. Ashcroft. We were just getting rid of an unwanted guest." Then Mr. Ashcroft spoke. "If you insist on kicking Katie out, I, as her father, will also abstain from the reception." "Huh? Father?" What do you mean?" They both stared blankly, unable to believe what Mr. Ashcroft had said. Seeing this, Mr. Ashcroft repeated himself. As I said, Katie is my daughter. As it turns out, Mr. Ashcroft and Mother were in a relationship in their 20s. Mr. Ashcroft was an executive and the future CEO at the time, while Mother had lost her parents in an accident and was alone. Their relationship wasn't blessed from the start. Furthermore, when Mother got pregnant with me, Nico Mimi Corporation, Mr. Ashcroft's father's company, was on the verge of bankruptcy. Everyone opposed their marriage, saying it would do nothing to help rebuild the company. So Mother proposed to put their marriage on hold until the company was back on its feet. She became a single mother, raising me with the love she had for Mr. Ashcroft, despite the societal stigma. But the company's situation had not improved significantly when Mother got pregnant with Georgie. When the daughter of the CEO of a certain company, who had offered help, proposed marriage to Mr. Ashcroft, Mother decided to step back, saying, I'll raise our 2 kids properly. You don't have to acknowledge them. Just please be happy with that woman and revive your company. After marrying the CEO's daughter, Mr. Ashcroft not only revived his company, but also grew it to the point where it became a listed company. However, we were not blessed with children, and divorced a year ago due to my wife's infidelity. Afterward, I proposed to reunite with Mother. A few days before Georgie's wedding, I met with Ashcroft, the company president, and my father. Oh, I've seen this person before. Yes, he was the uncle who had visited our apartment a few times during my childhood, trying to give my mother some money. He turned out to be President Ashcroft. When I involuntarily stared at him, he smiled at me and said, You've really gone through a lot. I've heard from your mother about the wedding this time. He shared his thoughts with me. President Ashcroft, who had become Georgie's business partner, knew well about Georgie's capabilities. I would like him to take over Migo Mimi Corporation, if possible, but if he fails to see the true nature of malicious people and disregards his mother and sister, I can't possibly entrust the company to him. So he was trying to investigate Georgie's character, using his wedding. The day before the wedding, President Ashcroft and Mother called Georgie and revealed the truth about their relationship, and that the Lilly family was trying to exclude Mother and me. Suddenly confronted with various revelations, Georgie, who had trusted Lilly and her parents, approached the wedding with mixed feelings. That's why he looked stiff during the ceremony. However, when he saw that my name was not on the reception seating chart, and observed Lily's parents trying to drive me out of the venue, he was convinced that what Mother and I had told him was true. Georgie brought Lily to the reception desk and declared, Lily, Mr. and Mrs. Lilly, I will annul this marriage. I have no intention of becoming a family with people who belittle and disregard my precious mother and sister. Wait, just hold on. You can't just say something like that all of a sudden. Yes, that's right. It's a misunderstanding. Besides, we've already held the ceremony. The two were in a fluster, but Lily, who hadn't grasped the situation, dropped the bomb. Huh? Georgie, are you choosing that low-life mother and daughter over me? You should know your place. Lily's parents, turning pale, tried to restrain her, but it was too late. When I explained the situation to Lily in detail, she collapsed on the spot and broke into tears. Furthermore, President Ashcroft said, I guess we'll have to reconsider our business with your company, causing Lily's parents to burst into tears and apologize profusely. Everyone at the reception saw this, and the reception was ultimately canceled. Georgie cut ties with Lily completely, without submitting the marriage registration. Afterward, I received a phone call from Lily, screaming in rage. You're the reason I couldn't marry Georgie. I'll be billing you for compensation and the cancellation fee for the venue. But when I responded, oh really? Then I'll sue you for defamation. Everyone at the reception heard the abusive language from you and your parents. She fell silent. Furthermore, I mentioned how her father had been removed from handling transactions with Nico Mimi Corporation, demoted, and sidelined. I should probably tell your father that I was threatened by Lily. Then, Nico Mimi Corporation might completely stop dealing with ABC Trading. Won't your dad definitely lose his job? Ignoring Lily, who was crying her eyes out, I hung up the phone on my end. Serves her right. Georgie, who had canceled his marriage to Lily, later transferred to Miko Mimi Corporation and seems to be working hard to become his father's right-hand man. Mother and father are getting married soon. Mother is shy about having a wedding after turning 60, but she looks genuinely happy when we pick out her wedding dress together. I've been devoted to my work up until now, but I've started to think that maybe one day I'd like to wear Mother's wedding dress.
Will you go out with me?
Just a week after meeting him, he confessed his feelings on the first day we hung out together. Caught off guard by his momentum, I said, yes. 1 year later, with no reason to break up, he proposed.
I'll protect you for the rest of my life. Will you marry me?
It was such a joyful phrase, but in retrospect, given his profession, he might have been accustomed to saying it. My name is Melissa. I am a 30-year-old office worker. My fiancé Sam is a police officer, 2 years my senior at 32. We met at an event for a hobby we both share. I was invited by my friend from high school and decided to participate. As I approached my 30s, I began to think about marriage, but without any romantic prospects. I joined the event a year ago just because I was invited. I wasn't particularly hopeful, but Sam, who I met there, seemed to take a liking to me for some reason, so we started seeing each other. A week later, we went out to dinner, and that's when he confessed his feelings. He's a police officer, apparently from a long line of them. I don't know anyone in law enforcement, so I knew nothing about that world. But as a fan of TV dramas, I had a vague image of it being quite cool. The proposal came just the other day. There were times when Sam's work kept him too busy to see me, but I thought I could stay with this man.
Melissa was just my type.
Apparently, he liked the way I looked and would often say things like that. I was happy to hear that, but it bothered me when he said things like,
We don't have any high school graduates in our family. Well, I guess it can be helped.
As if he was looking down on me for being a high school graduate. But it's true that I only graduated high school and Sam seems like an elite, having graduated from university, so perhaps it's inevitable that he would think that way. My family only has my mom, so I wanted to get a job quickly and make life easier for her, rather than go to college. When I told him that, he nodded and seemed to understand, so I believe he meant no harm. When I was in elementary school, my parents divorced because of my father's debts, and since then, my mother has raised me by herself without any child support, so I didn't want to burden my mother with the cost of college. In high school, I was encouraged to go to college with a scholarship, but I wanted to work and make money as soon as possible, so I chose to join the company I am at now. I have told Sam about this, and when I asked him just to make sure, you don't have any debts, do you? He laughed and said,
Of course not.
My mother had a hard time because of my father's debts. That's why I hate debts. I felt that even a scholarship was a kind of debt, and I didn't want to borrow money to go to college. Relieved by Sam's response, I decided to marry him. Now I live away from home, but I often talk to my mother on the phone. I have told her about Sam, and when I told her about his proposal, she was delighted. We haven't had a chance to introduce him to my mom due to Sam's schedule, but we're planning a meeting between both families soon, so I'll introduce him to her then. Before the family meeting, Sam asked me to visit his parents' house, so I, though nervous, went to his family's house with him. His mother, who greeted us, seemed to be a quiet person. After greeting her, we were led to the living room where his father was waiting. His father, in a word, seemed to be a big shot, and I was a little put off by him. Once the greetings were over, his father began to talk. Being a police officer himself, we had to listen for a long time to his stories about the cases he had solved. He keeps insisting that he was the only one who could have solved it, but all I can do is nod along. The tea that my mother-in-law prepared is growing cold, and I can't even find the right moment to eat the sweets in front of me. Looking at the clock, I'm shocked to find that only 20 minutes have passed. Time seems to be crawling at an astonishingly slow pace. That just goes to show how boring my father-in-law's stories are. Sam, sitting next to me, seems satisfied, sipping his tea and munching on his snacks. And even more, he's asking my mother-in-law for a second cup of tea. Wait, was he always this inconsiderate? Or is he used to his dad's rambling that he doesn't feel the need to consider my feelings? Although I let my father-in-law's stories in one ear and out the other, nearly an hour of one-sided conversation leaves me feeling quite drained. Finally, it seems like his tale has come to an end. As I reach for my tea, just as I expected, it has gone cold. My mother-in-law tries to make a fresh pot, but Sam interrupts with,
It's fine. Melissa likes her drinks lukewarm.
and that's why I ended up drinking cold tea. I mean, I do prefer my drinks lukewarm, but I would have preferred to drink it before it got this cold. My father-in-law goes out to have a cigarette, and when he returns, the smell of tobacco follows him in. I find it a little unpleasant, but I'm grateful he smokes outside. Just as I'm thinking this, something even more outrageous happens. My father-in-law brings out some documents and begins spreading them on the table. As I look closer, I realize that they're about me. I'm shocked, but he states matter-of-factly,
I had a background check done on you.
Those words leave me with a sour taste in my mouth. It feels as though I have done something wrong. As he pursues the documents, he lets out a sigh.
Raised by a single parent and only a high school graduate.
Well, that wasn't exactly a secret I had already told Sam. Surely he's not going to say he won't allow the marriage because of that. However, looking at me, my father-in-law says,
You just barely pass?
Barely? Is it because I'm from single-parent household or because I'm a high school graduate? I can't help but feel lost in my thoughts. But then Sam turns to me and says,
Good job, Melissa, you passed.
So I guess I passed. I let out a sigh of relief.
Oh, when you're a cop, you have to do a background check on whoever you're marrying.
Sam explains, it's the first I have heard of this.
It would be problematic if there were criminals in the family or if investigative information got leaked.
While Sam's explanation makes sense and I'm not against the idea of the check, I wish he had mentioned it sooner. I didn't like the fact that he just showed me the results of the investigation. And his comment about me barely passing was certainly rude. But at least I passed. I guess I won't have to go through this again. With that thought, I switch gears. As we wrap up the visit, Sam offers to drive me home. I ask him to drop me off at my mom's place. She should be home from work by the evening. I thought I would drop by and chat since I told her about visiting Sam's parents. Sam starts the car and we head towards my mom's place. In the car, I joke, I was surprised by the background check, but I guess that's part of being a cop? Maybe I should do a background check on you, Sam, just for fun. He laughs and says,
Go ahead, there's nothing you'll find about me.
Sam laughed.
Go ahead, you won't find anything about me.
As we were talking, we got close to my parents' house. I sent my mom a message saying we'd be there soon. She kindly came out to the entrance of the apartment to greet us. Sam greeted my mom. Since there was no place to park the car, he left after a quick greeting. I went inside and told my mom about the day's events. She was surprised about the background check, but she said, It must be tough being a cop, but I don't really like their methods. Then my mom says, That guy, he has a fancy car and he looks well off. But do cops make that much money? He doesn't have any debt, right? I'm not exactly sure about Sam's salary, but he seems like an elite among the police, so I suppose it's decent. My mom was worried about debt because my father had accumulated debt, which led to their divorce. When I mentioned this, my mother simply said, I see. A month later, I arranged to meet my mom at the nearest station to head to a restaurant that Sam's family frequents for our families to meet. A 10-minute bus ride from the station, we arrived at a rather fancy restaurant. Already there were Sam and his parents. Upon greeting them, my future father-in-law started off with,
Oh, we've been waiting. This is your first time in a place like this, isn't it? It must have been hard getting here without a car.
He had a tone that could only be taken as snide. There was something I had to tell them today. But as I was pondering over how to put it, My future father-in-law started bragging about something again. I put up with it for about 10 minutes, but then I gathered my courage and opened my mouth. Excuse me? At this, my future father-in-law immediately looked displeased.
What is it? It's rude to interrupt when someone is speaking. Don't you have any manners?
I was about to retort that the one who lacks manners is the one who endlessly talks about things no one is interested in, but I swallowed my words and took a deep breath. I'm sorry, but I would like to reconsider this marriage. When I managed to say that, Sam looked surprised and turned to me. I thought I would marry Sam, but I want to rethink.
Melissa, what do you mean?
A flustered Sam glanced back and forth between me and his father.
Is it because of the background check my dad did the other day?
I shook my head. The background check itself is not a big deal.
Then it's about my dad's attitude. I agree, it's inappropriate. It's rude to talk about the results of a background check like this, and it must have been torture listening to his bragging all the time, right?
When Sam said that, I couldn't help but chuckle. You understand well, but why didn't you stand up for me at that time? At this, Sam seemed at a loss for words. His father was glaring at Sam in silence. That's part of it, but that's not the main issue. Sam, you lied to me. Sam, who had been flustered, froze for a moment.
Lied? You mean about me dating 2 girls at once? But it's different. I've already been dumped by the other girl. I only have eyes for you, Melissa, believe me.
Hearing Sam suddenly expose himself like that, this time I was the one who was frozen. Dating 2 girls at once? From what he's saying, he was dating 2 girls, got dumped by one of them, and decided to marry me? I was momentarily confused, but that must be it. I never expected I was being 2-timed. My father-in-law continued to glare at Sam while my mother-in-law looked at us in shock. I couldn't bear to look at my own mother's face. I'm sure it was a picture of rage. I pulled out a document from my bag and handed it to Sam. Sam, looking utterly baffled, took the document. That's the reason we can't get married. As I said that and tried to leave the restaurant with my mother, my father-in-law started shouting angrily.
Wait a minute, what's going on? Are you making fun of my son? We could sue you for unilaterally calling off the engagement, but you couldn't pay the compensation. We have given our blessing to this marriage because Sam likes you despite you being a high school graduate and raised by a single parent. What's your problem? You're incredibly rude. Is this how you were raised?
The words ignited my anger. I was about to retort when my mother stopped me. Excuse me, but this isn't a unilateral cancellation of the engagement, and I would appreciate it if you stopped ridiculing my daughter. When my mother spoke so clearly, my father-in-law looked taken aback. Next to him, Sam opened the document I had given him. My mother-in-law also peered in and her face turned pale. My father-in-law, however, continued to yell at me.
What's this document? If you're marrying into a distinguished family like ours, you should be able to tolerate a little bit of 2-timing. If you have a problem, speak up.
I had just found out about the 2-timing here, but that wasn't the reason I had mentioned. Does this man not listen to what people say? Moreover, I don't want to become a daughter-in-law to a person who can proudly call himself a member of a distinguished family. This is a restaurant and the customers around us have been steering for a while. I want to leave as soon as possible because it's embarrassing, even though I'm never coming here again. But it seems like I can't leave unless I explain. I speak up, calm but firmly. I thought it would be inappropriate to say it here with everyone watching, so I was just going to hand over the document, but it seems that won't suffice. Backing me up, my mother says, "We have done some research too and found out something we simply cannot overlook." Taking a deep breath, I started to speak. The lie I mentioned is about debt. He told me he had no debt, but it seems he has been in debt many times. Whenever he's in trouble, he runs to you, father-in-law, for help. And he was also in debt during our relationship, which gives me reason to reconsider the marriage. I thought that would finally silence my father-in-law and let us leave, but now it seemed to be a matter of pride for him as he shouted back,
Be quiet. If you're going to marry, you have to tolerate at least that much.
"So I'm not getting married," I replied with a sigh, and then an unexpected voice chimed in. It was my mother-in-law who had been silent until now. "Enough is enough. I told you not to pay off Sam's debts because I wanted him to break the habit. But you did it again, didn't you? And it's embarrassing to call ourselves a distinguished family when you're not even married yet. Melissa, your mother, I deeply apologize for my husband and son's rudeness. I'll contact you again at a later date." With that, my mother and I left the restaurant. On the way home, I asked my mother, Mom, why did you say we should investigate?" My mother laughed and said, "Maybe it's a woman's intuition." When she first saw Sam, who had driven me home recently, she had a hunch. I didn't understand it at all, but she didn't want me to experience the same thing. So she requested the investigation, thinking that it would be fine if there was nothing. My mother's intuition was spot on. The background check results arrived last night, and I found myself reading them at the nearest station to where Mom and I were meeting today. I didn't have time to cancel our dinner, so that's how it happened. I can't say I hate Sam yet, but I do despise my father-in-law. I don't want to marry Sam so much that I'm willing to put up with his father. When I got home, I got a call from Sam. He was saying,
I had plans to pay it back. It's not a problem, right?
but even if he has plans to pay it back, I can't marry someone who borrows money so casually. Besides, he lied about not having any debts, and on top of that, he was two-timing me. That's when it hit me. Wait, I don't want to marry this man anymore, not even a bit. Once I realized that, there was nothing to worry about. So let's break up. Goodbye. And with that, I hung up on him. The next day, I got a call from an unknown number. It was my mother-in-law. She apologized to me and my mom, and then dropped a bombshell. She was getting a divorce. She also said she could introduce me to a lawyer if I wanted to claim damages for the broken engagement. Given that he lied and cheated on me, I decided to claim damages after some thought. My mother-in-law, who apparently had evidence of her husband's infidelity, got a hefty sum in alimony and divorced him. I claimed damages for the broken engagement from Sam. Apparently, he was two-timing me right up until he proposed, so I received a decent amount. When I told my friends who I met Sam with about this, the news spread, and one by one, Sam's friends started to distance themselves from him. According to my mother-in-law, the rumors about the two of them have spread at work, and the arrogant father-in-law is finding it hard to show his face. Sam apparently has no place at work either. Thanks to my mom, I was saved from marrying such a man. I am grateful to her, both in the past and now. We are planning a vacation, just the two of us, sometime soon.
I didn't exactly see myself footing a bill of around 40,000, you know? Just because you have money doesn't mean you should always have to spend it. Well, I'm an elite. If it bothers you so much that I spend money, you're welcome to stop. Gladly, I'll stop, and I can even take this to court if we follow the proper procedures. I'm Angela, a 56-year-old woman. I lost my husband to an illness 10 years ago. Still, I've managed to raise my 2 children thanks to my job as a lawyer. My youngest son, Frank, works as a freelance writer. He says he writes about various genres, but I don't know much about his work. However, he's independent, so I trust him. My elder son, Righteous, is a salaried worker. He's somewhat careless with money and often says, "I'm handsome, so I've never had trouble with women." It worries me that he always introduces me to his flashy girlfriends. I have a small office and live alone, leading a leisurely life. One day, I got a call from Righteous. "Hey Mom, it's been a while. How you been?" "I'm doing great. It's indeed been a long time. Are you doing well, Righteous?" "Yeah, I'm good. Can I come over for a talk soon?" "A talk? What about?" "Well, I'll be waiting for you on my day off." "Okay, I'll come over to your place then." I live alone in an apartment. It's close to my office, and I find it more calming to be alone. Work keeps me busy, and sometimes I can't even keep up with housework. But knowing Righteous was visiting, I cleaned up with enthusiasm. Just when I finished cleaning and was taking a break, the doorbell rang. It was Righteous. "Come in. I just finished cleaning up. Do you keep your place tidy, Righteous?" "Yeah, Mom. I'm thinking about getting married." "Oh, congratulations! So you finally found someone you want to settle down with." "Righteous. You always go for the flamboyant girls. No offense. But I was worried. You didn't just choose her for her looks, did you? Are you sure about this?" "You thought that about me? That's harsh." Sorry. You mentioned you wanted to talk about something." "Yeah, my girlfriend is an only child, and she has always dreamed of a wedding. She wants to show her parents her bridal look, but her parents have chronic illnesses and can't work. Can you help us out with the wedding costs, Mom?" "What? Righteous. Haven't you been saving up?" "I've saved a little, but I need to think about our living expenses too, right? I'm a guy. I don't really care about the wedding ceremony that much." "Well, if that's the case, I guess it can't be helped." "Thanks, Mom. I'll make sure you get to see your grandchild. So please, spoil them, okay?" "Wait, a grandchild? Are you having a shotgun wedding?" "Sorry. Nowadays we call it a joyful wedding." "Righteous. You've got it all backward." "Anyway, we need to go and greet her parents too." "Yeah, about that. She wants to have the wedding before she starts to show, so we've already booked the venue. And for that, we need money." "How much are we talking about?" $40,000. "I'm not sure about the average costs, but okay. More importantly, let's arrange a day to meet her parents." "Okay, got it." With that, Righteous left. I'm about to become a grandmother. Some of my friends are already grandmothers, and they tell me grandchildren are truly special. That's something I'm looking forward to a little. Am I already a doting grandma? The next day, I transferred the money to the wedding venue Righteous had told me about. A shotgun wedding might not be that unusual nowadays, but I can't help but worry about how it will be viewed by society. I spent the following days worrying. I wondered whether I, as the mother of the groom, should apologize, or perhaps I should meet her parents sooner rather than later. Then one day, the phone rang. It was my younger son, Frank.
"Mom, I heard Big Brother's getting married. Is that true?"
"Yes, dear. We've even paid the venue deposit."
"Wait, the venue is already booked?"
"Well, it's a shotgun wedding. Or do they call it a celebration marriage now?"
"Call it whatever you want, but is Big Brother really ready for this?"
"Ready for what?"
"Well, he's always brought home flaky women."
I told him the same thing, but apparently her parents have chronic illnesses and are unemployed, so Righteous asked me to provide the wedding funds.
"Isn't it strange that you're the only one footing the bill, even for a shotgun wedding?"
I guess that's why they call it a shotgun wedding. It makes the groom's family feel guilty.
"I think you're the one who feels that way these days, Mom."
Frank said, laughing. But I did feel guilty. Am I the only one who feels this way? Well, I am a woman of the old era. After all, I laughed to myself, waiting for my older son to contact me. Then, finally, the phone rang. It was Righteous. I've been waiting for your call. When are we going to meet her parents?
Sorry for the late response. She's been dealing with severe morning sickness.
Really? Is she okay? Is she unable to eat, or does she keep eating?
You surely know a lot about this, don't you, Mom?
Well, of course. After all, I've raised both of you. I couldn't eat during my first pregnancy, and during the second one, I felt anxious unless I was constantly eating.
I guess she's more of the can't eat type then.
That must be hard. Is she getting enough nutrition? There's got to be something that she can eat. When I was pregnant, all I could keep down was canned oranges and then tomatoes. Now I can't stand either because I ate too much of them.
So that's what it's like being pregnant, huh? It sounds tough.
Sure is. That's why you need to take good care of her.
Thanks, Mom. I'll get back to you once things have settled down.
I forgot to tell him about the money I had spent on the wedding, but he seemed worried about his girlfriend's health, so I decided not to bring it up. It reminded me of the times when Righteous and Frank were little, and how I struggled to raise them. When they cried as infants, their cries were so powerful that I sometimes ended up crying myself. And when they started walking, I had to constantly keep an eye on them. Thankfully, my husband was a kind man who helped look after our sons. By the time he passed away, they were in high school and required less care. I remembered how gentle he was and wished he was still here. A few days later, Frank came to visit. Ding dong. Frank, what brings you here? It's unusual for you to visit.
Well, there's something on my mind.
What is it? You seem thinner. Are you eating enough?
I'm fine, Mom. Work's just been busy. Anyway, about Big Bro. Is he really getting married?
Why do you ask?
Well, last time you mentioned that because his girlfriend's been sick from morning sickness. You haven't met her parents yet, right?
So, it's the kind of morning sickness where you can't eat. It's so tough, morning sickness.
Mom, why are you so casual about this?
Huh?
I saw Big Bro with a woman who looked like his girlfriend in the middle of my job. They were holding shopping bags and seemed to be having fun. The bags were from expensive brands. She didn't look like a pregnant woman at all.
Really? What does that mean?
Mom, you said you transferred the money for the venue, right? Are they really planning to have a wedding?
I am so shocked. I don't understand what's happening. I had forgotten to breathe. What could it be?
What I'm saying is, didn't they say they were going to have a wedding? Have you transferred the money and then suddenly cancel, using the money to go shopping?
No way. That can't be true.
Then who did I see? Big Bro and his mistress?
Was the person Frank saw really Righteous? Wasn't it someone else?
Got it. I'll look into it properly. For now, act like you didn't hear this story and don't talk about it with Big Bro.
Okay. Frank, please. As a lawyer, I deal with everything from infidelity investigations to civil and occasionally criminal cases. But I never thought I'd be deceived by my own son. I'm probably looking as if there are blue lines on my face in a cartoon. I was so shocked. It couldn't be, could it? A few days later, I finally got a call from my eldest son, Righteous. Sorry, Mom, for being late. Are you free on my next day off? Yes, I'm fine. Then I want to introduce you to her parents. Could you come to XXX Hotel? Understood. I'm looking forward to meeting them. While holding back the doubts in my heart, I managed to respond and hung up the phone. Mixed feelings of excitement about finally meeting the real girlfriend, the woman who will become my eldest son's wife, and anxiety. I am headed for the hotel we had promised to meet at, in a state of mind I had never experienced before. It was a restaurant in a city hotel with a beautiful view and a garden, and the weather was perfect. I wish I could have been in a better mood. Such a wonderful place. When I arrived, Righteous, his girlfriend, and her parents were already seated. I apologize for making you wait. No, we arrived early, so please don't worry about it. Nice to meet you. I'm Daisy's mother. Nice to meet you. My name is Daisy. Nice to meet you. The pleasure is mine. Nice to meet you. Let's sit down, shall we? She was a beautiful woman, just Righteous's type, and she was wearing a beautiful dress. I wondered if it was okay for a pregnant woman to wear high heels, but I hesitated to say it out loud as it might sound strange. I had heard that her parents had chronic illnesses and could not work, but they were dressed very nicely. Her mother was even carrying a designer bag. We are really happy that Daisy was chosen this time. I heard that Righteous is working at a prestigious company, and you're a lawyer. We're truly honored to be connected to your family. I think Daisy is too good for Righteous, but thank you. We exchanged typical greetings, and the meal proceeded in a relaxed atmosphere. So, Righteous, when is the wedding? I asked. About that. I was thinking we don't need to rush to have a wedding. Huh? But I already transferred $40,000 to the venue. More importantly, I found a suitable property for our new home. What do you think of this high-rise condominium? What do you mean besides? What about the high-rise condo? Suddenly, she showed me a brochure. We're thinking of having the wedding after we move and settle in our new home. So we need funds for the high-rise condominium, Mom. She and her parents bowed their heads and asked, Please, for the sake of these two, we ask for your understanding and support. A high-rise condo fund out of the blue? As I was taken aback, Frank appeared. Frank, you're here. Mom, it's gonna be okay. What do you mean it's okay? Brother, stop playing these cheap tricks. Tricks? What are you talking about? I did a little digging. The story about your parents being unemployed due to chronic illness? That's a lie, isn't it? What? They both work, don't they? Why is it that only my mom has to provide the wedding fund and transfer the money? Isn't that strange? Wait, isn't it normal for the groom's parents to provide the wedding fund? I've never heard of such a thing. And what's this about funds for a high-rise condo? Listen to this, he said, placing a voice recorder on the table. Recorded on it were voices of her father and Righteous. Frank had sneaked into this hotel a step ahead and recorded their conversation. Righteous, aren't you worried that your mother might find out that Daisy's pregnancy was a lie?
No need to worry. My mother is the kind-hearted type who worries when told that Daisy has severe morning sickness. Did you also say you got a refund from the wedding venue after you suddenly canceled? Yes, with this money, and if we can ask my mother for the down payment on the high-rise condominium, we can live together. My mother has plenty of money, so there's no need to worry. That's a blessing indeed. Can you still say it's a lie now, brother? This is obviously a joke, right, father-in-law? For a moment, I felt dizzy, but Frank supported me. Her pregnancy was a lie. No wonder she was wearing such high heels. They had swindled the wedding funds, and now they want money for a high-rise condominium? What on earth is happening? I was often told that I'm too kind-hearted. Brother, how about you apologize to Mom? This is a clear case of fraud. What do you mean, fraud? You're gonna be a part of the family. It's not fraud. I don't need to hear this from a freelance writer like you. Unfortunately, while doing my writing job, I also attended school and passed the bar exam. I'm planning to help Mom in her office, so you don't have the right to talk back. When did you? I also heard about Frank passing the exam just the other day. I was very happy and felt reassured. So I realized I mustn't get discouraged over this. I'll give up on the $40,000 I paid to the wedding venue. Consider it settlement money. We don't remember being taken care of for a mere $40,000. What? Settlement money? Don't you want to see your grandchild? I don't want to see a grandchild from parents who deceive me to steal money. What kind of face will the child of such parents have? I would love to know. Even Frank is just a budding lawyer. His wedding must be a long way off, right? We can take care of you, Mom. I've never thought for a second about burdening you two, I said. Frank is set to marry my secretary, you know. She's hardworking, observant, adorable, and a good girl. A far cry from someone who's only after money. Unlike my brother, I'll make sure our wedding is within our means. No need to worry. And brother, you won't be invited. Excuse me? Daisy sounded surprised. Righteous, that's not what we discussed. Your mom has money, remember? You said it would all work out. What about the high-rise condo we were supposed to live in with my parents? I'm an elite salaryman. I can manage the funds for a high-rise condo on my own. I don't need my mom to foot the bill. Excellent. I'll gladly cut you off, and I can even take it to court if needed. I absolutely refuse to pay anything. Righteous. Let's consider this matter settled. Let's go, Daisy. With your charm, you can marry any rich man you want. On to the next one. Next one? Even an elite has limits when he runs to his mom for help. Well, at least I got a designer bag out of it. Bye, Righteous. Daisy nonchalantly got up and left without a word. I won't be seeing you again. Hey, wait up! As I watched Righteous desperately chasing after her, I deeply regretted how I had raised him. Phew, what a day. Mom, you really did well. I feel like I've lost years of my life. Please don't say that, Mom. I plan on being a good son from now on. Thank you, dear. I knew I could count on Frank and his wife. I don't intend to depend on them or live with them. I sold my current apartment and built a house a bit outside the city. I plan to spend my weekdays in a rental near the office and my weekends at the house. If I worked hard now, I can spend my golden years peacefully with my grandchildren.
I still have so much to teach Frank. I never thought I could rely on him this much. When his father passed away, Frank was only a high school freshman, but he decided to study hard and become a lawyer. He wanted to help me, and he did this while claiming to be a freelance writer. He used to come to my office for interviews, but it turns out he was actually visiting my secretary. Their relationship started without me noticing, and Frank decided not to marry until he passed the bar exam. When I heard his girlfriend agreed to wait, my trust in them grew. Frank proposed to her after passing the bar exam on his second try. She's not just hardworking and attentive, she's a great woman. Her family is respectable and she's lovely. Compared to her, it's clear Righteous only saw Daisy's looks. Righteous was left high and dry after Daisy and her parents got fed up with him. Daisy is good looking, but she had a terrible reputation at the company where she and Righteous were dating. She's notorious for transforming in front of rich men. And the breakup, she couldn't stay at the company and is apparently now hunting for rich men at a different company. He must be one stubborn character. I guess it doesn't matter now. Righteous was just as naive, losing his head over a woman like that. His name, given by his father, meant to live righteously. And look at where it got him. His father must be rolling in his grave. After being rejected by the unfaithful Righteous, he also resigned as rumors went around the office. Now, he's set to be job hunting. In this day and age, he can't seem to find work. Apparently, he came to the apartment where I used to live, shouting like a beggar. But a neighbor reported him and the police gave him quite the scolding. Of course, there's no way I'm telling Righteous where I live in the suburbs. He wouldn't know how to find out either. I hope he has a change of heart. He's a good kid at his core, but he was led astray by people like Daisy and her parents. No, perhaps I'm the one who failed in parenting. Parenting is hard. Well, if he does change and finds a truly good person, I'll tell him where this place is. After all, it's a place full of memories with his father and a place we often visited on family trips. But I can already picture myself spoiling my grandchildren. If I did that, Frank would surely scold me. Because Frank, he's the embodiment of sincerity.
My name is Olivia. I'm 35 years old. I've known my husband Nick since our college days, and we've been together for about 15 years, including the time we dated. Both Nick and I are still working at the company we joined after graduation. Both of us working makes life easier. The more income, the easier life gets. Let's do it. I agreed with Nick's words and chose to keep working after we got married. I didn't hesitate because I didn't want to waste my hard-earned career. There was also another proposal that came soon after we got married. Things at home might get tough with both of us working, right? What do you think about living with the parents? I immediately accepted the proposal. I'm delighted. I want to live with your dad and mom, and with Lola too, right? Yay! Y'all really get along well, don't you? Even dad and mom and Lola. She talks about wanting a sister in front of me. I wish she would consider my position a little. I had established a good relationship with Nick's family during our courtship. Every time I went to visit, they welcomed me with a smile, and we often went out together. So I never doubted them until we got married and lived together. I was looking forward to becoming a family after marriage. There was not a single thing that made me anxious. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I turned off the alarm on my smartphone and got out of bed. I quickly got dressed and headed to the kitchen. As I put on my apron, I boiled water, took out bacon and eggs from the refrigerator for breakfast, and continued preparing for the morning. When I put the morning paper that I had taken from the mailbox on the desk, my father-in-law came downstairs from the second-floor bedroom. Good morning. Good morning. I'll prepare the coffee. My father-in-law nodded and sat down at the dining table. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, and he always goes to work before 7 because he starts early. He's a high-ranking executive at a major company, famous even at my company for being skilled. However, at home, he's only quiet and never acts high and mighty. That was delicious. When he finishes eating, he always brings his dishes to the sink. At first, when he brought them carefully, I told him, "You can leave them there." "It's all right. Let me do at least this much," he responded. He doesn't talk much, and we rarely have a chance to chat, but I think he's a very kind person. It's been almost 6 years since we started living together like this, and everything has gone as planned with only my father-in-law. At 6:45 in the morning, Lola would come stomping down the stairs from the second floor. "Oh, I'm sleepy." "Good morning, Lola." However, Lola ignored my greeting. She came to check the kitchen as is. "Ugh, I was in the mood for cereal today." "Oh, I'm sorry, I made pancakes today." I knew what was going to happen next. Ignoring my explanation just like she ignored my greeting, Lola started throwing all the pancakes I had worked hard to make into the trash. "Okay, let's make them again." Lola dumped the empty plate in the sink as if to tell me to wash it. From the first day of our marriage and living together, I received a harsh invitation into my role as a wife. And it wasn't only Lola. "Yuck, yuck, what's this? You didn't make pancakes?" At 7 o'clock in the morning, my mother-in-law would slowly wake up. Nick would casually wake up as a result of this, but "I'm sorry. Just cooperate, would you? You're going to make everyone's breakfast late." I'd initially complained that Lola had thrown the pancakes in the trash, but it seemed that my protest fell on deaf ears. Upon seeing their unsettling, gleeful grins, I realized I had been tricked. On my very first day, I already wanted to quit this co-living arrangement, but I thought given time they'd come around. However, even after 6 years, nothing had changed. I felt utterly helpless. Adding insult to injury, my very own husband, the key person in all this, masterfully ignored the whole situation. I had consulted with Nick in our first year of marriage, but all he'd done was dismiss my concerns, saying, "I'm sure they have their reasons." I never grasped what he meant. Even after repeated complaints, all he did was shift the blame, telling them exactly what I said. "Olivia doesn't like it, so you should stop." That was when I realized he wasn't just lacking tact. He simply didn't care about anyone but himself. Of course, the harassment from my daughter-in-law didn't end there. I ate my breakfast standing up, snatching bites while doing other chores, leaving no time to sit down and enjoy my meal. While having breakfast, I tidied up, did laundry, and cleaned the house. Then right after I finished, it started. "On your way back, could you pick up some snacks? Oh, and if you're going shopping, could you get my makeup too?" Needless to say, they never offered any help. The reason I wake up at 5 a.m. is because I still have a job. Preparing for the morning and making lunch ahead took quite a bit of time. I left the house at 8 a.m. every morning. Of course, my leisurely mother-in-law and the home help, Lola, didn't even bother to see me out. It's been 6 years. I've gotten used to it, but every morning I left for work, I whispered to myself, "This isn't what I signed up for." I work as an office administrator. My office hours end at 6 p.m., but often I end up working an extra hour or two. At first I used to work overtime regularly. However, I was constantly harangued by calls to my office. "Is my daughter-in-law there? Can she stop working overtime?" As a result, I felt bad for causing inconvenience to my colleagues and superiors, and unless it was absolutely essential, I was allowed to bring work home. Usually, I got home around 7 p.m. Nick typically returned home by 8 p.m., so the first thing I had to do was prepare dinner for my mother-in-law and Lola and finish the laundry. "Can't you come home earlier? The laundry's not done yet." Of course, I didn't lift a finger to help. Neither did Lola. You can't even manage the household chores properly. I've been yelled at and even had my dinner withheld. In these cases, I still had to prepare meals for everyone else in the family. After they finished eating, they wouldn't carry their dishes and demanded coffee in the living room. I was left to clean up the dishes, prepare coffee, and run around. Nick would arrive midway through, but he never helped me out. "Pasta today? I was in the mood for pizza." "Huh? What's up? Are you in a bad mood today?" "No, just eat your food." "Alrighty." Even Nick's small remarks were getting on my nerves. After Nick and the other two had fallen asleep, I still needed to stay awake. I had to complete household chores and then finish up my work brought from the office. What should I do? At this rate, I might not be able to finish on time. Maybe I'll just do as much as I can now and continue during my lunch break tomorrow. "I'm home." Father-in-law, welcome home. I apologize. I'll prepare dinner right away." I was so absorbed in my work I didn't notice father-in-law had returned home, but he simply replied, "No, I'll take a shower first," and went into the bathroom. In the meantime, I tidied up my laptop and started preparing the meal. Once father-in-law finished eating, I cleaned up everything and went to bed. It was already 1 a.m., which was relatively early for me. The following day, I'd wake up at 5 a.m. and start another busy day. Then, one day, I collapsed at work. One morning, as I was walking around the office, I suddenly felt dizzy and fell. Thankfully, I didn't lose consciousness, and after resting in the break room, I felt a bit better. My boss told me to take it easy and gave me the afternoon off. Well, isn't it unusual for you to be home at this hour? Yeah, I wasn't feeling well. Is it just an excuse? What? Come on, you look perfectly fine to me. It's not good for an adult to use sickness as an excuse to slack off, you know. You need to work harder. I couldn't even muster the energy to be angry at their laughter and nonchalant attitude. I never had high expectations, but their insensitive words made me feel worse than angry. My body just instinctively rejected them, and I found it hard to breathe. So you can put more effort into dinner today, right? Of course, right. You've got time. We've been putting up with your quick and easy meals. You should treat us when you have the time. On that day, my husband, just like mother-in-law Lola, came home expecting a homemade meal because I had the afternoon off. He didn't think about why I got off early or showed any concerns. As a result, I ended desperately cooking steak, getting constant complaints like, "Could you cook it a bit more? Don't you have any sausages? We don't need vegetables." I had reached my limit. "What? You're quitting your job?" I had decided to quit my long-time job. I thought that if I focused only on housework, things might get a bit easier. I can't do this anymore. We should be able to manage with Nick's salary, right? I'm finding it hard to balance work and house chores. No, that's a bit unrealistic. At my husband's words, laughed out and saying it's unrealistic, I turned pale. What? Why is it unrealistic? Because we two are contributing $1,500 to the household expenses every month, right? It'll be difficult to do that with just my salary. Well, can we maybe reduce that? I think Mom would probably say no. Well, if it's not possible, it's not possible. Just try a little harder. The sight of Nick patting my shoulder and smiling, I had never hated him more. I thought it was pointless to talk to him anymore, but it seemed like fate was on my side. The company I worked for was downsizing due to poor performance. I had the option to seek assistance for the next job placement for my company or even stay, but I chose to resign immediately. Huh? You're leaving because the company is doing poorly? Yes, that's why I'll be focusing on household chores from now on. I told Nick, who had just returned from work, that I had resigned from the company. I knew it was somewhat forceful, but I felt it was the only way to make him pull his weight. However, when mother-in-law and Lolo, who were along with Nick, heard the news, they became livid. Are you out of your mind? What about the money? If you're working, it's going to be hard on Nick. I won't allow any cutbacks. But there are things I just can't do besides juggling household chores, and work was exhausting. I believe this is a good opportunity for me. No, but you said it's impossible. We need at least $2,000 to get by. I think you can manage. After all, $2,000 is just for living expenses. Honestly, I don't believe the utilities alone can cost that much. I was under the impression that the $2,500 I was providing every month was going towards living expenses, and there had to be room for savings. Even though they adamantly said it was impossible, I believed the amount could fluctuate, as it was not a fixed cost. Then I was told an unbelievable fact by mother-in-law. My head hurts. You thought that was just for living expenses? Then what are you spending it on? I thought it was all going to mother-in-law and Lo's living expenses. Let me be clear. Isn't it obvious that we need to cut back there? You're asking us to tighten our belts? What kind of wife are you? The $1,500 come from the paycheck, doesn't it? Yes, it does. The $1,500 every month was all being transferred from my account to father-in-law's. When I discussed it with Nick, we decided to handle all the payments from my salary. It was simpler to manage everything from one salary. That money, it's not for living expenses, but for the mortgage payment on the house. What? A mortgage? That includes some home improvements, so the mortgage payment is $1,500 a month. That's a fixed cost. It can't be changed. Hold on a minute. That kind of expense was supposed to be managed with father-in-law's salary. What a waste. Why should we use Nick's money when we have our own to spend freely, especially when we have a wife who's like a wallet? I was dumbfounded to be referred to as a wallet. It seemed like they didn't think of me as a wife, but merely as a source of money to exploit. And watching mother-in-law and Lila's laugh uproariously at this reality, I could confirm that Nick, with his calm smile, was just as guilty. Well, but Mom, she quit her job and doesn't have an income anymore, right? Shouldn't we get rid of her quickly? Yes, let's do that. We're under no obligation to take care of you, nor do we need to provide you with a place to stay. Wait a minute. Well, Mom's right. Sorry, Olivia. You'll need to move out until you find a job. Nick! I couldn't believe what my husband was saying to me with a smile. But the three of them, ignoring my shock, slowly pushed me towards the front door. I was too stunned to resist and found myself locked out. You don't deserve a free meal. Come back when you can pay for yourself. An unemployed wife should get lost. Bombarded with harsh words through the front door, I felt too weak to resist and walked away slowly. They didn't even let me take my stuff. All I had was the smartphone in my pocket. I thought about using it while it was charged, but in reality, the last place I would turn to for help, my family's home, was the reason I couldn't choose to divorce despite all that had happened. After walking a little in the residential area at night, as expected, a call came in from my mom. Hello? You're not thinking about coming back home, are you? Our house is in the country. It would be a hassle if you came back. Apologize properly to your in-laws. You're not allowed to come back here. Nick probably called my parents' house. He knew what kind of people my parents were. That's why I was looking forward to living together when I was being deceived. I believed they would care about me more than my own family. What should I do now? Before I knew it, I was sitting blankly on a bench in the local park. It was 9 o'clock. I needed to decide my next move soon. But my wallet. Remembering that I had left my bag with my wallet inside, I reluctantly decided to sneak back to the house. I was anxious about what might be happening at home and was secretly watching from outside when someone approached from behind. That person quietly handed me my bag. It was my father-in-law, who had found my bag at the front door after coming home from work. Several weeks had passed since I left home. During that time, there seemed to have been trouble at the in-laws' house. Where is Olivia? Come back. Come back, hurry! Hey, where are you really? I chose not to block messages, but I ignored all the notifications. I didn't feel like replying, but I was also busy at the time, so I deliberately left them hanging. A month later, I mailed divorce papers to be filled out. I also hired a lawyer referred to by my father-in-law and claimed a refund of the $99,000 for the house mortgage that I had been paying for 5 years and 6 months at a rate of $1,500 per month. I also added a small claim for compensation in the divorce proceedings against the three of them. Immediately, Nick started calling me like a demon, so I had no choice but to answer. What's with that lawyer? I won't accept a divorce. Well, let's settle in court then. Goodbye. Wait, I'm in a tough situation. Please withdraw the claim. Mom has also been served divorce papers by Dad, and he said she could do whatever she wants with the house. Mom said she wants to stay here. Why don't you support her then? That's the hard part. That's why I'm saying please come back. No way. Why should I go back to such a hell? I couldn't hide my irritation as I listened to my husband's selfish claims. And right now, the parents' house is the worst situation. It's become like a garbage dump because no one's doing the chores properly. Why don't you do the chores then? That's your job as my wife. Then how about paying me for the housework? It's $12 per hour, from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., and from 7 p.m. to midnight. I'll do the housework if you can pay me monthly for these hours. You're out of your mind. There's no way I'm paying you for that. It's a wife's job to handle the housework. There's no paycheck for household tasks. My father-in-law did pay me. What? On the day I was kicked out, my father-in-law, who had handed me my bag, bowed his head deeply to me. I'm really sorry. I warned him several times, but I never thought it would come to this. Father-in-law, I know about your parents' house, Olivia. I fear that something like this might happen eventually. With those words, my father-in-law asked me to wait in front of the house for a moment. I entered the house, and after a few minutes, he quietly handed me something he had fetched. This is a banking card, isn't it? What my father-in-law handed me was a banking card in my name. Soon after we got married and started living together, my father-in-law had asked me to open an account, as he knew someone who worked at a local bank. Remember the troubles that started as soon as we moved in together? That's why I thought it would be troublesome if something happened, so I made this. I knew right away when we got married that he was doing something when I wasn't around. I warned him several times, and I was fooled by his act of pretending to reflect on his actions. So I want you to accept this money. Please consider it as my way of making amends. When I sneakily checked and there was about $200,000 in the account, I was shocked. I owe you nothing but gratitude, father-in-law. Well, I was busy with work. I think I should make up for the fact that I hurt Olivia during that time. It's a token of my gratitude for always making delicious meals for us. Thank you so much. The others used to brag about it, but actually before Olivia came, I was doing most of the housework. It's also my fault for spoiling the family. Please forgive me. I can't believe it. Also, this money is what Olivia should receive for her hard work doing housework for the past 5 years and 6 months. It's your salary for housework. I just calculated the hourly wage as $12 on my own, but I hope that's okay. I was moved by the warmth of another person, and it felt so comforting that I could only nod through my tears. If you can't afford it, then pay me. I'm done working for free. I don't care how much you guys struggle. You need to experience even more hardship. Don't say such harsh things. Please, I beg you, it was my fault. Forgive me, I'll do anything. Then my mother-in-law Lola started sobbing on the other end of the phone. I was wrong, I'm sorry. I was just enamored with a drama I watched recently. It wasn't my true feelings. I'm sorry too, I'll help with the housework from now on. I won't mistreat you. Let's get along as sisters. Even after hearing the voices of the 3 people experiencing hell, I was unmoved, because I felt that they still had the energy to plead. Nick said a moment ago that he'd do anything. Oh, of course we'll do anything too. Yes, I'll do anything, even the house chores. I'll help too if you need anything, just tell us. Thank you. Then please pay the compensation from the divorce trial and return the $1,500 as agreed. What? That's all I'm asking from you. Well then, goodbye. With that, I hung up the phone and blocked all their contacts. A few days later, I heard that Nick's mother-in-law and Lola moved out of the house. Apparently, they were unable to pay off their mortgage, and their house is put up for auction. By the way, father-in-law, after divorcing mother-in-law, moved to a suburban house and is said to be enjoying his single life. And the 3 who were kicked out of the house are now living together in a cramped apartment, working hard to pay the compensation and refund from the divorce trial that I demanded. They agreed to pay in installments, so while it will just be a monetary relationship from here on, I've told them I'll sue if they fall behind on payments. They're risking their lives. Nick hasn't let his company find out about the incident and hasn't quit yet, but after the divorce and looking disheveled, occasionally smelling like trash, his coworkers are starting to steer clear of him. The office atmosphere is the worst for him. And me, I'm currently working at the company where father-in-law is employed. Utilizing my skills from my previous job, I've been entrusted with the role of a manager in the general affairs and HR department. It's a fulfilling job, and I want to keep pushing myself. By the way, of the $200,000, I used about $7,000 for starting my new life, but I haven't touched the rest. I plan to keep this as an emergency money in case father-in-law ever needs help.
Hi there, I'm Evelyn, 27 years old. I'm a homemaker and also work at a company where I hold a position of responsibility. My husband, James, is the same age as me. Balancing a mama's boy of a husband and a mother-in-law who seems to enjoy picking on me, we've somehow made it to our 2nd year of marriage. Patting myself on the back for staying strong, I've found solace in my job. Thanks to that, I've been climbing the corporate ladder, making unusual strides for a woman in my position. Given my job, I often find myself flitting around Las Vegas for business, and I'm currently right in the thick of a business trip. And right in the middle of an important meeting, it happened. Just as the meeting began, my phone, set on silent, wouldn't stop vibrating. Thinking it might be an emergency because of the relentless calls, I checked my phone under the table. It was filled with missed calls from my mother-in-law. What on earth? I was startled and decided to call her back. Just as I was about to step out and return her call, she called again. When I left my seat and tried to call back, I received another call from mother-in-law. Hello, Evelyn! Where are you right now? As soon as I pressed the call button, I could hear her agitated voice. I got a call from the last person I wanted to hear from, I muttered to myself. Hello, mother-in-law. What can I do for you today? Is there an emergency? I don't care what you can do for me. I asked where you are. Her usual arrogance rubbed me the wrong way, but I was in the middle of an important meeting. I didn't want to extend the call by arguing back, so I responded. Sorry, didn't James tell you? I'm at a meeting on a business trip. Can I call you back as soon as it's over? I replied as gently as I could. Well, of course I knew that. Neglecting your home and your husband. What are you doing? Hurry home! Out of nowhere, she hit me with an unreasonable demand. Mother-in-law, I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of a very important meeting. Then she cut me off. You're just a wife, yet you're so arrogant. Now go home. Today is a very important day. You understand, right? My mother-in-law spoke, letting her irritation build. Wait, an important day? I asked her what she needed me for so urgently, since she wouldn't tell me why I needed to hurry home. Then, today, we decided to celebrate my 60th birthday, she answered proudly. If I remember correctly, we were supposed to celebrate her birthday at the end of the month. I hadn't anticipated it would be today, and to plan it during a weekday when I'm on a business trip. Moreover, my husband and I had already told her, we'll find a nice place and make a reservation for your 60th birthday. I sighed, realizing another round of her antics had begun. Despite knowing I'm in the middle of an important work meeting, she still tries to bully me, I thought, growing more irritated. Like I said earlier, I'm on a business trip, so it's impossible for me to come. Oh, but I just spoke to James and he said he would take time off work. Other relatives said they would join too. It's just you, Evelyn. You're always working. You're so cold. What do you think of your husband's parents? If I let her keep talking, I knew she would just keep complaining. I was in the middle of a meeting and couldn't spend more time on the call, so I firmly replied, I'm sorry, but no matter what you say, I can't make it to your 60th birthday celebration. I made sure to make it clear. My mother-in-law didn't hold back her cruel words. Taking a deep breath, she said, I will never accept you as family. Don't bother coming back. This is a divorce. James was too good for you from the beginning. Her words of doom all came out in one breath. As furious as I was, I didn't want to prolong this phone call, so I responded lightly. Ah, okay. We'll discuss this when I get back home. I apologize, but I have to end this call now. I told her to take it easy. She sneered back. What's with that attitude? Didn't I tell you not to come back? I'll tell James myself. And with that, she hung up. Exhausted from dealing with her, I heaved a sigh and returned to my meeting. 2 days later, after several meetings, I was finally on my way home. My mind was filled with anger and resentment towards my mother-in-law. I couldn't even remember how I got home. I'm home, I called as I opened the front door, and a weary, welcome home, came from my husband. I went straight to the living room, where there was a mountain of cardboard boxes. My husband was there, sweaty, taping up the boxes. When I asked him what it was, he told me they were all my belongings. It turned out that on the day my mother-in-law had called, she had indeed carried out her 60th birthday celebration. She made a scene in front of all our uncles and aunts about how I, her daughter-in-law, had disrespected her birthday celebration and was rude to her over the phone. She added more to the story, and then even announced that such a cold wife was not suitable for her son, and that she was arranging for a divorce and sending me back to my parents' house. I asked my husband, So, did you agree to the divorce when she told you to? He fumbled for words. Well, not exactly, but she told me to pack up your stuff, so I had no choice, right? I stopped putting packing tape on the cardboard box and answered in a flustered manner. So, you didn't object to her? You're okay with this? He admitted that his father had also told him to comply with his mother's demands because it would be trouble for him as well if she got upset. So what does it mean to accept a divorce gracefully? This parent and child. A mother's son, a father who was in control of his mother. It seems that there is no one who thinks to be on his wife's side. While I was speechless, he said, Mom's word is law. We just need to wait until she calms down. It's fake. This divorce is fake. I'll come to get you once things have settled down. James pleaded with a desperate look in his eyes. I wished he would have used that cunning against his mother. I want mother-in-law to use that wisdom. Just how scared of his mom does he have to be this submissive? I thought to myself, this is hopeless. I began to regret marrying this man. But then, I thought, this could be a good opportunity. If I stayed with him, I would probably continue to be bullied by my mother-in-law and threatened with divorce. Maybe it's better to take this chance and leave, without a fuss. And I make enough to support James by myself, you know. Even if I live alone, I won't lack anything. Just like that, I felt my mood lighten. I told James, okay, let's do it. After telling him, I called mother-in-law. Before the third ring could finish, mother-in-law answered with the, hello? I'm moving out, just as you wished. I calmly relayed the message. Almost like she had been waiting for it, mother-in-law responded with an exultant tone. Go ahead, leave. Finally you understand you're not suitable for James, huh? What a breath of fresh air. Don't worry, I'll find a cute, obedient wife who is also kind to parents for him next. There'll be plenty of women vying for James. And oh, until he finds his next wife, I'll take care of everything for my son. So don't worry about that either. She threw every possible jab she could, thinking this would be the last chance. To this, I said, well, mother-in-law, don't regret this. I casually added a little warning. In her high spirits, mother-in-law retorted, is this sour grapes, perhaps? Don't worry about me. Oh, and remember, I've gotten the divorce papers from the court and given them to James. Don't forget to sign them on your way out. Without even saying goodbye, she ended the call. James, who had been watching the whole conversation, seemed relieved. No, this is not the time to feel relieved. By the way, do you think mother-in-law knows that you're a stay-at-home dad? There's no way I could tell her that. The idea that I'm an elite is what gives mom a reason to live. James responded, flustered. Ah, I see. Come to think of it, there might be too many instances that hint at this. Despite being dressed in worn-out sweatpants at home, he intentionally changes into a suit when meeting mother-in-law. He also pretends to be out during the daytime just for mother-in-law, as if he's going to work. And mother-in-law, at her 60th birthday party, unabashedly bragged about how James is such a kind son to take time off from work to celebrate with her, and that with James's status, he could find a more docile and cute wife than me at any moment. If we got a divorce, these things would inevitably be revealed. But I doubt this mama's boy would ever have the courage to disappoint mother-in-law, who believes her son is an intellectual powerhouse. I also doubt mother-in-law would ever consider the possibility that her elite son had quit his job. In fact, James quit his job about a year ago. Mother-in-law's status symbol of an elite son was now unquestionably unemployed, a stay-at-home dad. The catalyst for this was a significant mistake at work that led to a demotion and a pay cut. I'm sure he didn't tell mother-in-law about this either. Straying from the path of a successful career had severely shocked him. He was always a mollycoddled mama's boy, so he probably couldn't take a hit. At the time of writing his warning letter, just the thought of going to work caused palpitations and nausea. He couldn't even step out of the house. At first, James would call in sick or apply for paid leave, but eventually he stopped even doing that. His unexcused absences piled up, and he ended up quitting his job. Now it seems like he has no intention of finding a new job and relies on me for support. He's too afraid to tell his mother about this situation because he's worried she'll get angry. I must say, it's a little disappointing that I won't get to see her reaction when she finds out what's been happening. I imagine she'll be absolutely shocked, but that's none of my business anymore. After James handed me the divorce papers, saying, "Remember, this is just a ruse to fool my mom," I promptly filed them in court. I quickly signed a lease for a new apartment and moved out. About a month later, I received a call from James's mom, who I thought I had cut ties with. I sarcastically asked her, "What could you possibly need from me now? Aren't you relieved to be rid of me?" She retorted, "Just the same as always, huh? Just listen to me," and started speaking in her usual condescending tone. The topic? James. After our divorce, his mom had been helping him out with his housework. Every time she went over, James would just be lounging around at home, showing no signs of heading to work. She asked me if I had any idea why he might be acting this way. I had to hold back a laugh as I nonchalantly responded, "Oh, is that so? Well, of course that's the case. That's right, James has no intention of working." Forgetting the way she had treated me, she suddenly pleaded, "Evelyn, could you please do something about this?" Why should I? He's nothing to me now. She had treated me poorly and now only wanted to use me when it was convenient for her. How selfish. She then tried to blame me, suggesting, "Did you say something to hurt James when you left?" Just how far does she intend to villainize me? Can't she see that the problems lie with her and her son? The one who got hurt was me. Oh, really? Didn't you marry James because you could live a luxurious life? What exactly got hurt when you divorced? She thought I had married James for his money? I wish she would stop making such absurd accusations. What? Are you kidding me? During our marriage, I was the one supporting James. I was even helping you out financially. If anything, my lifestyle became less luxurious because of James. I didn't really care before, but should I start demanding compensation? She couldn't believe what I had just said, and rudely responded, "How dare you make up such a lie? Did you just forget to demand your compensation? James has always been earning more, and has a higher position than you. Stop making these ridiculous claims. If you're unhappy and want money, James can pay as much as you want. He is an elite worker at a top-notch company, after all." She came back at me with baseless excuses. Could it be that James still hasn't told her? As much as I dislike the idea of revealing something he's chosen to hide, this might be my chance to see her reaction when she learns about the situation. Thinking it's about time she gets a taste of her own medicine, I told her, "Your beloved son's job is a stay-at-home dad. He quit his job a long time ago." What? You must be joking. As expected, my mother-in-law refused to accept my words. She yelled so loud, I thought my eardrums might burst. I distanced my phone slightly from my ear and suggested, "Why don't you check with his company? That'll clear up whether I'm lying or not." She fell silent for a moment. But, what if that's true? How are we supposed to survive from now on? Our pensions aren't enough to take care of my son. Who would want to marry an unemployed son? What are we going to do? Her tone dropped significantly. It seemed like my words had hit home. I felt a smug smile creeping onto my face. Well, what do you suggest? Mother-in-law fell silent once again. I heard some mumbling in the background. "Evelyn, can't you come back home?" she suddenly asked. Surprised, I replied, "No, we're already divorced. There's no chance I'm coming back, whatever happens." Then I heard a voice in the background, sounding disturbed. "Didn't you say you'd come get her when things calmed down?" It appeared to be my ex-husband, James. "That's right! Why don't you remarry our son?" Mother-in-law suggested. "What? No way! Stop joking around! Think about it! Seriously!" I made sure during our last phone call that I wouldn't regret it. I'm definitely not getting involved with my mother-bound ex-husband and my atrocious mother-in-law ever again. I did exactly what you told me to, mother-in-law. Could you not change your story on me now? But Evelyn, you're not the type to take words at face value. You've always calmly countered anything I've said, haven't you? I didn't think you'd actually go through with the divorce. It seems like mother-in-law didn't expect me to reject her this firmly. Sure, I was just tolerating it. Also, remember when you packed my stuff and kicked me out? I recalled every single thing they did to me and unleashed my anger. Well, that was just a prank. Yeah, just a prank. Despite her desperate attempts to justify herself, I retorted, "A prank, huh? I think that's even worse, don't you?" I was taken aback and realized there was no point in continuing this conversation. I glanced at my wristwatch. It was almost 1 p.m. My lunch break was completely wasted on this nonsense. Mother-in-law, can we wrap this up?" I asked. "Oh, what is it, Evelyn?" She responded with an irritatingly sweet voice, perhaps expecting a positive answer from me. Thinking I won't entertain her expectations, I said, "I need to hang up now. I've got a meeting coming up and I need to review some documents." Despite moving my phone away from my ear. "Wait! Evelyn, please wait! Say something!" I could hear mother-in-law's desperate scream. Then I heard, "James! This happened because you didn't handle things properly!" She was berating James. Seems like everything that doesn't go according to mother-in-law's plan is always someone else's fault. I was getting sick just listening to her. So, without hesitation, I tapped the end call button and blocked all incoming calls from mother-in-law. So, what happened next? Well, I received a message from James. He said, "I want to come back." He was persistent, and it seemed like a good opportunity. So, I asked my lawyer to claim divorce compensation. That mother-in-law and father-in-law, it seems they were weak when confronted by a lawyer. They quickly made a lump sum payment. The money appears to have been fronted by the mother-in-law and father-in-law. Perhaps this situation caused a change in mother-in-law and father-in-law's attitude. James now constantly gets nagged by them to get a job. It seems like he's getting fed up with it. Where did that once successful man go? Apparently, he can't afford his apartment rent anymore and moved back to his parents' house. Blaming his divorce on the mother-in-law and father-in-law, he's now eating into their pension and savings for their old age. Like father, like son, as they say. They both keep blaming each other for their sins, without reflecting on their own actions. By the way, he mentioned that he's going to apply for public assistance soon. They won't be able to have their way with the government, so I hope they try to correct their character while they still can. As for me, a presentation I made on a business trip was recognized, and a contract with a major new client was established. My position and income have both increased. I live a rich single life, without being bullied by my awful mother-in-law, and without my family demanding money from me. If there is a chance to remarry in the future, I plan to thoroughly check for mommy issues and the mother-in-law situation.